Welcome to Build Your Maverick Business, the podcast for underdog, outlier, and renegade entrepreneurs. Brought to you by Strange Creative Studio. If you dream of going off on your own and launching your rebel empire, but don't know where to start, you're in the right place. We'll teach you how to use mindset, branding, and practical advice to build a killer business and transform your world. And now, here's your host, founder of Strange, Alex Pitt.
Hello, my loves. This is a wild one, this episode, because if you heard last week's episode, I say last week's, I'm sat bulk recording episodes because I'm going away. And so I've just finished recording the episode that you would have heard last week. But while I was talking about it, I suddenly had a wave of inspiration for the next episode. So I've thrown out the notes for the one that I was going to do. And now I'm just going to fucking wing this. I've made absolutely no plan for what I'm going to talk to you about. So this should be interesting. Here we go. I think am I on coffee number 4 now? God, pray for Alex. All right, here we go. Anyway, the reason that I threw out my notes and wanted to talk about something completely different was that when I started talking last week about a podcast that I'd listened to, I mentioned that I really enjoyed the personal brand of one of the women who was a coach who I listened to. I listened to her podcast kind of religiously. It's really funny that I kind of worship the ground that this woman walks on because she has a whole episode called No Gods, No Gurus, which is like, don't idolize people in business or mentors or anyone like that. But I'm still just like, she's so fucking great. I absolutely love listening to her podcast. I really enjoy her as a person. I like everything she has to say. I like her style. I like her attitude. She's very unapologetic in a very different way than I am. She's this kind of like ballsy woman from New York, like very body positive, feminist. Like, I obviously consider myself a feminist too. I don't talk about body positivity so much because it's not something that's affected my life in the way that it has hers. But everything that she has to say, I'm just like, oh God, you're just fabulous. And I'm really interested and I'm hooked. I listen to her episodes every week when they come out. And there's another podcast that I listen to. And I have to be very careful about what I say here because this woman I've got mad respect for. Like, she has built this multi-million-dollar business. Very impressive. And I've read, I think, all of her books. I follow her on social media. I am always getting ads for her services and workshops and all sorts of things because I really like everything she has to say. Now, her personal brand I can only describe as being the polar opposite of everything strange. Right, my personal brand is kind of goth as fuck, right? I talk about being a weirdo. I'm very sweary. I'm a bit, I don't know how, I'm nerdy as fuck. I wear black everywhere. If you listen to the first episode of Build Your Maverick Business, you will hear about my story and all the things that make me me. Got a bit of a dry sense of humour. I'm a bit sarcastic and I'd like to say that I'm quite down to earth, right? So I'm going to give you some real practical advice in this podcast. I'm also not going to be around the bush about how fucking hard it is to run a business. So I try and share as much wisdom as I can. Now, this woman is like seashell wearing, blonde haired, hangs out on the beach all the time and posts a lot of videos of her on the beach. She's very fucking woo-woo. She talks about crystals. She is the antithesis of Alex Pitt. Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. But I fucking love everything that she puts out anyway. Because I really appreciate people just being so authentic, of just championing their personal brand. And it being so strong that you just kind of get what she's about, you know? You just really get it. People just know what they're getting when it comes to me too. And they can decide whether or not they like it. I've had people feedback that they don't really get what the fuck I'm all about. I've had people tell me that I swear too much and it's unprofessional. I've had all sorts, you know? You love it or you hate it. But you decide how drawn in you are to that personal brand. Now, I actually co-created and co-run a branding masterclass, a personal branding masterclass. Now, this is different to what we do for Strange because, you know, this is more for big businesses. This is people who are a team and they're a collective. But when it comes to personal branding, the masterclass that we do is consultants, freelancers, people who are operating as individuals. And they come onto our masterclass because they have absolutely no idea how to brand themselves. They don't know what a personal brand is necessarily. They don't know how to curate it. And they come along and we take them through a few steps. We have 3 live sessions and they have some pre-recorded material. And the idea is at the end, they understand better their why. They can tell their brand story and they understand what they're all about. Now, you would be amazed at how difficult people find this. And I say you'd be amazed, like I went through this as well. When Strange first came about, I had to do so much digging. I had to be very vulnerable. I had to try and work out what the hell I gave a shit about, which is bizarre because you'd think you'd know. It's really hard when you have to do it for yourself. And I think this is why people struggle with personal branding so much. But the main thing that I've noticed is the people who don't think they have a personal brand. And one of the questions that I always get asked is, how do you separate you as a person and your personal brand, as in how you work? And I think where people really, really struggle is that they feel the need to separate those two things. Now, I used to separate those two things, much to the detriment of me and my business. Well, this is when I was a freelancer. Now, you will have heard me talk about this if you've listened back to previous episodes. When I was a freelancer, I was Alex Pitt Creative. Now, I had a personal brand. It was still who I am right now. It was still this sarcastic, ballsy, always wear black, mega fucking nerd. But I did not channel that through Alex Pitt Creative, right? My personal brand that I was putting out there was so generic. It was so boring. There was nothing there. I was really holding myself back from the world seeing the real Alex Pitt and knowing who the fuck I am and missing out on the opportunity to inspire people and connect with them because I was putting up this front of just, okay, I am all of these things. I am really nerdy. I am really goth. I am X, Y, and Z. I am really fucking sarcastic. But I'm not going to let you see any of that because this is the workplace. You must only see a shadow of the person that I really am because that's what I think is worthy of going on LinkedIn, right? Like, I was looking at this entrepreneurial world that already pre-existed and I didn't know how I fit into it. So I made myself so beige, like the vanilla ice cream of personal brands. Because I thought that was what was acceptable. I didn't want the world to see the real me because I didn't see myself in that space. I'd never seen it before. I had not seen the equivalent of, you know, a Bill Gates or a Michelle Obama or a Richard Branson or, you know, whoever. I hadn't seen the equivalent of those people that looked and sounded like me. So I deemed myself inappropriate and I made myself very generic. And I didn't let the world see the real me. Now, if you've heard the previous episodes, you will have heard how much that didn't fucking work out for me. I did all right for work. I did all right for finding clients, but it was very kind of base to base. It was like one thing after another without any real growth, without any real impact. It all felt a little bit hollow. And this is where I really started to struggle. And when I embraced that personal brand and I injected it into my business, I let Strange be Alex Pitt to the fucking core. That's when things really started to snowball. Because I realised that there were so many people who felt exactly the same way as me. There were these maverick business owners who wanted to do something, who wanted to create this rebel empire, but they didn't think that they were acceptable in that space. Now, this woman that I mentioned earlier on, this woman who is quite woo-woo, seashells on the beach, blonde hair, pastels, she is a multi-millionaire and she has built her business by preaching to the world that you should not be hustling, that you should be chilling the fuck out and enjoying yourself, and that you just need to structure your business in a certain way, and then you can just fucking hang out on the beach. And that's one of the reasons that I have so much respect for her, is because she, in a very different way, is doing what I'm doing, which is stepping into this role of saying, this is what an entrepreneur looks like. No matter what you fucking look like or how you act or what you do or what you're into, you can be an entrepreneur too. And if there's no one out there who looks like you, if you don't see yourself represented in this space, then maybe you need to be the one who is stepping in and representing, you know? Like, what person do you want to be that is the, I don't know, like the disco entrepreneur, the fucking florist entrepreneur, I don't know, what the hell do you want to be? Don't think for a second that you can't be that. Now, really understanding your personal brand can be really difficult because it involves you being quite vulnerable. But it all needs to start with your story, right? Your journey that you've been through, the journey that you've been on to get here. Now, it doesn't have to be your life story. It can be a chance encounter. It can be something that happened that really kicked you into gear. Now, for me, I tell the story of how I always felt like this weirdo, that it started for me when I was 14 and I was this bizarre, lanky, unusual teenager that didn't feel like I had a place in the world. Now, that's my brand story. And my personal brand is very much being that weirdo and allowing myself to be as unapologetically me as possible. And just coming back to that question that people have, that concern that people have when it comes to creating their personal brand, it's that separation. It was what I was doing, where it was like, I have to put a version of myself out that is acceptable in a business sense, right? Now, the thing you have to remember, brands only exist to create emotional connections, to make you feel like you have an emotional connection with something that isn't human. Think back to the episode of Your Brand Is Not Your Logo, how I talk about loving all of these brands, which are essentially corporations. But I use that terminology. I say that I love them. I want to invite them into my life. Now, brands only exist to emanate that kind of emotional connection, right? That's why businesses go out of their way to seem human so that you feel a certain way about them. Now, if you are wondering what your personal brand is, you're already fucking human. You can skip so many steps. This is so much easier than creating a brand for a business. And I think what people do is they add in all of these extra steps and they overcomplicate it. And they do what I did, which is create something which is more like a business than a person. So you're like reverse engineering what these big businesses are doing. You have the advantage if you're a person. You're already human and you don't need to fake anything. You don't need to create artificial human traits because you're already human. It's so much easier. I think the part that's really difficult is that vulnerability and accepting that whatever kind of person you are, whoever you are, that is absolutely perfectly wonderful right now. I do get like this on this podcast sometimes. You know how like my female listeners will know, if you go into a club bathroom from 11 p.m. onwards, the chances are you will make best friends with a girl by the sinks. And it'll be like, no, you should dump your boyfriend. He's a dickhead. I want the best for you, sort of thing. This is how I get about people starting businesses. I'm the drunk girl in the bathroom that's just like, please follow your dreams. But I think the reason that I care so much about this is because I've had it happen to me. And I went from just feeling so scattered and lost and just not seen to creating this brand that I'm so proud of, that's just snowballing, that's getting so much attention and is growing so fast now. And it's all because I decided to throw out the fucking rule book on what an entrepreneur should look and sound like and just show up as the most authentic version of myself. And the thing is, people like that because everyone else is doing the same thing. Everyone's hiding. Everyone thinks that they need to present a certain version of themselves to the world, and that if they don't do that, they're not acceptable. Now, I'm here to tell you to stop fucking doing that because the world needs to hear what you've got to say, right? And the chances are that when you stop hiding, you will inspire so many people who wish that they saw themselves in someone else. So my message for you this week, my loves, what I want you to take away is that when it comes to your personal brand, exactly who you are right now, the real, most authentic version of you is perfect and great. The only thing you need to do is stop hiding. Champion that shit, because the world needs to hear what you've got to say. I'm going to stop being the drunk girl in the bathroom now. Anyway, have a wonderful week, my darlings, and I will see you soon.
Got an idea for a maverick business of your own? Learn how to build a powerful brand that will get people obsessed with our online program, not just a pretty logo. You'll learn a simple step-by-step framework that will kickstart your killer brand and help you find your raving fan base. Find out more today at strangecreativestudio.com.